Garrett Mitchell, known across the internet as Cleetus McFarland, walked into Talladega Superspeedway carrying more than just a helmet and a racing suit. He carried the memory of a fallen friend, the skepticism of NASCAR officials who had already told him he wasn't ready for superspeedways, and the expectations of millions of fans watching to see if a YouTuber could actually compete at the highest level of oval racing. What unfolded over the next few hours was one of the most dramatic ARCA finishes in recent memory, a story involving a pizza delivery driver, a green bandana, 2 personal dedications, and a margin of 0.11 seconds that separated heartbreak from glory. Cleetus McFarland is not a conventional racing story. He built his name on YouTube long before he ever strapped into a serious race car, and that dual identity has followed him into every paddock he's entered. At Talladega, Fox's broadcast called him Cleetus while the official entry sheets listed him as Garrett Mitchell. NASCAR itself could not settle on what to call him. That identity tension is actually a decent summary of his entire racing career so far, a man the establishment isn't quite sure how to categorize, but who keeps showing up and performing in ways that make the categorization increasingly difficult to avoid. His YouTube fanbase has turned every microphone moment he gets on a NASCAR broadcast into appointment viewing, and that attention has only grown as his racing resume has expanded. His path to Talladega was built on a series of difficult lessons. His Truck Series debut at Daytona ended after just 6 laps, and he finished 37th. At Rockingham in the O'Reilly Series, he started 35th, spun twice, and finished 32nd. Those results look rough on paper, but on the same day at Rockingham, he finished 4th in the ARCA East race, a result that signaled there was real talent underneath the chaos of the learning curve. The problem was that NASCAR had already decided to deny his superspeedway approval for the O'Reilly Series race at Talladega, which meant that the ARCA race was his only available shot at proving himself on the biggest oval in the sport. That context matters. He wasn't at Talladega chasing content. He was there because it was the only door left open. Standing alongside him in the field was George Siciliano, better known as Squirrel McNutt, a longtime friend and fellow YouTuber who was also entered in the race. The two had a genuine shake-and-bake plan, working together on the drafting runs the way teammates at superspeedways have always done, trying to use their friendship as a competitive advantage in a 40-car field. Beyond the strategy, Cleetus was carrying an emotional weight that had nothing to do with standings or approval ratings. He wanted this win for his late friend, Greg Biffle, the Cup Series legend whose memory he brought with him onto the track that afternoon. He started the race from 20th position, deep enough in the field that any path to the front would require nearly perfect execution and a generous amount of racing fortune. Gio Ruggero led from the pole, and Cleetus worked his way up to 7th within the opening laps. The first 30 laps stayed clean, an unusual development for a 40-car superspeedway race, but calm doesn't last long at Talladega. Ali Owens crashed in the trio valve, bringing out the first caution of the day. By the competition caution at lap 38, Cleetus was running second, directly behind Ruggero. His team walked him through restart strategy on the radio, and his response made clear exactly where his head was at. "I love nothing more than a good old drag race." When the green flag dropped, he banged doors with Ruggero, received a massive push from Daniel Dye, and surged to the front. For the first time in his ARCA career, Cleetus McFarland led a race. Ruggero briefly reclaimed the position before drifting too high, and Cleetus blew back past him. Leading at Talladega, over the radio, he said, "How freaking lucky I am." Then, quieter, "I wish Biff was here." What came next tested his composure in a different way. While racing with Jake Bowman pushing on his bumper, Cleetus accidentally turned Bowman around. Bowman spun, but the race stayed green, and Cleetus dropped back to 5th. Isabella Robusto took over the lead. With approximately 18 laps to go, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Eric Cadale got into Bobby Dallenhard, causing Hard to check up. Brian Dowsett then plowed into Cadale's number 7, bringing out a caution. But the sequence wasn't finished. Will Kimmel pushed Thomas Annunziata, who had been racing the entire event without a working radio. Annunziata got turned into Ruggero, and the whole field exploded. Cars scattered everywhere across the track. Cleetus barely threaded through the wreckage and escaped without significant damage. Squirrel McNutt was not so fortunate. His car was destroyed in the crash, ending his day immediately. A red flag came out for cleanup, then another car wrecked under caution, stretching the delay even longer. The emotional picture at that point was striking. Cleetus was now running without his teammate and closest ally in the field, carrying the memory of Greg Biffle, with his superspeedway NASCAR approval still denied, down to whatever laps remained at Talladega. The red flag delay reset the field for what would become a one-lap sprint to the finish. Robusto led the field to the green with Ruggero and Kimmel behind her, both carrying nose damage from earlier contact. Cleetus lined up fourth. When the green flag dropped, Ruggero faded almost immediately, his damage too significant to overcome in a drag race. Kimmel grabbed the lead briefly but couldn't hold it. What developed in the final corner of the final lap was exactly the kind of chaos that makes superspeedway racing unlike any other form of motorsport. Gustanin and Cleetus split Kimmel on both sides simultaneously. The two of them came out of the final corner completely side by side, made contact, and very nearly took each other out of the race entirely. Cleetus described the moment afterward. "I feel like I needed to back up a smidge. I'm pretty sure I tried to go down. We started beating each other up and Andy got the W, congrats to him." While Gustanin and Cleetus were trading paint in the final 500 feet, Andy Jenkok went around both of them on the outside and crossed the finish line first. The margin was 0.11 seconds. Gustanin finished third at 0.114 seconds behind the winner, Robusto came fourth, and Ruggero fifth. Andy Jenkok is not a name most casual fans would recognize, and that is precisely what makes his victory so significant. Between races, he has worked as a part-time pizza delivery driver. This was his 48th career ARCA start, the product of years of grinding in a series where sponsorship and funding are constant battles. He had previously run his own program before KAS Motorsports bought out the operation and brought him on as a full-time driver. In the moment the race ended, Jenkoak did not know he had won. The radio was too staticky to communicate clearly, and he genuinely believed there was one more lap to go. He stayed on the throttle through the chaos because he had no idea the race was over. When the reality set in after he climbed out of the car, he pulled on a green bandana and broke down completely. His words in victory lane: "This one's for my best friend Steve Mendoza. I'm wearing a green bandana for him. I love him so much and I know he's home watching." He called himself the luckiest man in the world and stood in the infield in visible disbelief. The parallel between Jenkoak and Cleetus is one of the most compelling parts of this story. Two men, driving for two different friends they were honoring that afternoon, separated by 0.11 seconds at the finish line. One got the trophy. One got a performance that will be very difficult for NASCAR to ignore. That brings everything back to the larger context surrounding Cleetus McFarland's presence at Talladega in the first place. NASCAR ruled that he was not ready for superspeedway starts in the O'Reilly Series. That ruling was what sent him to the ARCA race as his only option. He started 20th in a 40-car field, led laps for the first time in his ARCA career, survived the largest crash of the race when other cars were destroyed, and finished second at Talladega Superspeedway. His spotter Kevin Hamlin and the Rhett Jones racing team deserve significant credit for the strategic guidance they provided throughout the afternoon, keeping him positioned and informed through a race that became increasingly unpredictable. But the execution on the track was Cleetus's own. A second-place finish in these conditions, from that starting position, against this competition, is a result that stands completely on its own regardless of how you feel about his YouTube career. The argument that he is not qualified for superspeedway starts in the O'Reilly Series has become substantially harder to defend after Sunday's race at Talladega. NASCAR will face growing pressure from fans who watched this performance and are going to demand that the governing body reconsider its position. The fan reaction following the race was immediate and loud, and that volume is only going to increase as the footage continues to circulate. At some point, the approval will have to come. This performance didn't just quiet critics, it created a timeline. What happened at Talladega on this afternoon is the kind of story that reminds you why motorsport produces narratives that scripted entertainment cannot manufacture. A YouTuber who wasn't supposed to be there, a pizza delivery driver who didn't know he'd won, a green bandana in victory lane, two friends being honored from the cockpit, and a finish decided by 0.11 seconds. The ARCA Series takes a week off before returning on May 8 at Watkins Glen for the General Tire 100, the first road course race of the year, airing at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on FS2 and the Fox Sports app. Whether NASCAR clears Cleetus for superspeedway starts in the O'Reilly Series before then is the next major question this story is asking. If this race had you locked in from start to finish, hit that like button. It directly supports coverage like this and helps stories that deserve attention actually reach the people looking for them. If you are not subscribed yet, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you get every race breakdown, every storyline, and every moment that matters across NASCAR and ARCA the moment it drops. Watkins Glen is next. Don't miss it.